On my journey to become the best version of myself during quarantine, I interviewed guests who gave their life experiences and expertise on love to finances and everything in between. Join me to learn a thing or two on becoming the best version of you with Gigi Show.
Dr. Copeland.
Hi there.
Look, we're back.
We're back. Absolutely.
So today, first of all, welcome to becoming the best version of you with G. And we do this same place, same time, every Tuesday at 8. We have this show, and sometimes I, do a solo show, and sometimes I am blessed and privileged to have company, just like, Dr. Copeland. And she has been with us for three different
This will be the
times.
third one.
Yeah, this is the third one. And we talked about, it seemed like we crammed in a lot of stuff in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So I really hope that it was a blessing to you all. It was a blessing to me as well. Even, I'm just a sponge of information. I learned from little kids on up to grannies who are 100 years old. I think we all have something to teach each other. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about, fear. We've talked about post-traumatic stress disorder. We've talked about depression. We've talked about bipolar and physical and sexual abuse. And today, I said, what can we end this 3-part series? And I was going to, so many things crossed my mind to talk about, but I prayed about it and I'm like, Lord, I could talk about relationships all day, every day, because I can relate to so many situations. But that's what the Lord put on my heart, and I asked him, to confirm it, and he did. And so I was thinking about a lot of conversations that I have with family or friends or colleagues, and it never fails. Is about relationships, the conversation. Mm-hmm. Somehow we could be talking about the sun. We could be talking about sports. Rarely, but we could be talking about sports or something in the media, but somehow we end up going back to somebody's relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted Dr. Copeland to dive into what are mommy and daddy issues. Where do they come from? How can we identify them? And what is their effects? Those issues, what are those effects on our current relationships? If we had these these not so nice childhood experiences, and so that became issues, mm-hmm. for us. So I want her to shed some light. I think it'll be a really good conversation. So for those who are tuning in, grab your notebook, tell your friends, text them. Tell them to, jump on, my Facebook page, or you guys start a watch party. But it's so many people who need to hear this conversation, because so many people are struggling with childhood traumas and issues that, we're just big kids. It's not like we leave that stuff in the past and just like our little bodies, that is, it stays back there. But mm-hmm. As we get evolved and we grow and we get bigger, those problems, they come along for the ride. They didn't go anywhere. Is that right, Dr. Copeland?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. I think part of the challenge is we forget that every family has some form or level of dysfunction. There is no perfect family. Like, just wipe that out of your head now. And if you think of a continuum of healthy to unhealthy, we all fall to some degree on that spectrum. Or if we have dysfunction, it's a matter of low to high dysfunction. And so the challenge is understanding When we are in families that are unhealthy, when we're in families that are dysfunctional, then we are learning systems, practices, behaviors, processes from that family dynamic. And it doesn't matter if it's a two-parent family, if it's a family that's made up of a one parent and children, or if it's a parent with a dating partner and they have children, or it can be multi-layered with regards to multiple generations living in a household. And so the family dynamics can be made up of anything. The question becomes, how healthy are we? How dysfunctional are we in our family when it comes to communication, when it comes to setting boundaries, when it comes to relationships, whether it's a parent child relationship or if it's a love relationship or if it's two adults just in friendship. We get the opportunity as kids to grow up and see what these things are. I mean, literally, we see it firsthand. And so if you grow up in a family with a high level of dysfunction where, you know, maybe dad or mom was emotionally unavailable, or they were emotionally abusive, or they were physically abusive, or there was sexual abuse, or there was alcoholism, or some other form of substance abuse, or say someone had anger issues. You have all these different things that can play out in a family dynamic. And the challenge becomes is when you have kids and you bring them into that unhealthy scenario or environment, then it's a matter of if you never get the help that's needed, or if you don't identify that there are things that we're doing that aren't effective or beneficial or healthy, we pass it on. And then, like you said, we're small people that grow up into big people. And I don't know how many times I've had an adult person sitting across from me who's emotionally stunted as a child. And so they may stand and sit in front of you at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, but emotionally, they are younger. Emotionally, they haven't grown or developed the way they needed to. And when you have trauma that happens in the family, it impacts development. We find other ways of coping. It could be something as simple as we become perfectionists and we want to please everybody, or we become people that's just enablers. Or if you're a child who has a parent who's unavailable and you have younger siblings, you now become a surrogate parent. So it's all these things that can happen in childhood that when you grow up into adulthood, it plays out in your relationships, mostly in your significant dating relationships. Some of your friendships, it can be reflected, but usually you see the level of challenge that happens for an adult in their dating relationships, whether it's them being able to communicate effectively, or they are emotionally unavailable, or they're not comfortable with physical touch, or they're always giving physical touch, or they're always looking for someone to be pleased by them. It's just a matter, again, looking at your family dynamics and understanding the level of function as far as health to unhealth, or functioning levels to dysfunction. Where do you fall on that continuum? There is no perfect answer. There is no right answer. It's just a matter of when you see that certain things that you're doing are unhealthy, now you need to make some changes. Now you need to do things differently.
So I want us to, and that was a great start. Thank you for that kind of introduction. So I want to break it down because I want y'all. I promise you to get all of the nuggets, and y'all know I'm always talking about these nuggets. Somebody need to sponsor, one of these shows, advertising they nuggets as much as I talk about them. But I am not talking about food, though. I am talking about stuff that is wisdom, stuff that is a good life lesson nugget, that we can put in our learning toolbox and utilize later on. We can't process, at least I can't, everything all at once when I first hear it. I have to go away and then take some of this in and see how it relates to my own life. And so I want Dr. Copeland to separate the two for a second. I want to talk about the guys first. Okay. Um, Tell us what kind of, first of all, tell us how these mommy issues, and you did say some of it, but I want to go into it a little deeper. Tell me how, or us, how the mommy issues can start with a guy, with a little boy. How does it evolve and take shape? Like, what things does he have to go through with his mom to um, create these issues in him?
Some of the things that can happen, and it mostly happens in single parent households, is sometimes the son is made the head of the household, or he's made the king of the household, or he's the man of the house. And so when you think about the level of attention or impact that has, people can say, oh, this is so taboo, but there's a form of emotional incest that occurs because you're now taking a child and putting them into a parental or adult role, and you're putting upon them emotions and expectations of a partner instead of you being the adult and them being the child. So you have a young man who grows up maybe being the center of the universe to his mother. And then as he becomes an adult, everything he does, he's overly enmeshed or connected to his mom, and he's unable to separate. And so if he's in a dating relationship where he's always going to his mom first, then his partner or girlfriend may feel like, what's going on here? You talk to your mom like every day, or you talk to your mom all day, or why do you bring your mother into your decision making, and all these other things. And so that can impact the dating relationship, the marital relationship, because here's this person who has taken a huge high number one placement in your life, when in essence, biblically, you leave your mother and father and you cleave to your spouse, your wife. If that's not happening, some of that happens because we haven't established clear boundaries and understanding that you're to separate, and that at some level, why is mom turning only to you? Where are her relationships of support? Why is she making you her emotional support? Well, what child truly knows how to take care of an adult? In reality, they're giving something they shouldn't have. And so this adult male now becomes challenged in his intimate relationships because his relationship with his mother is impacting how he views himself in this relationship, how he takes on certain roles, how he may or may not be a leader. He may need someone else to give him permission. And if his mother took a significant part of that, then he carries that with him. I think it was, which movie was it? Um, I think it was Think Like a Man. And one of the main characters, he was overly enmeshed with his mother. And so the girl he was dating had issue like, what is going on? I know you have these traditions and these practices you have with your mom, but at what point do you break away just a little bit? What point do you put me as a priority if I'm going to be your wife? And then the other challenge becomes also is that sometimes there's this concern or over concern for the parent that you neglect yourself because you want to please them, you want to make them happy. You saw them not being happy, you never want them to feel this way again. And so you go out of your way to overextend yourself. And now you're not the son, you're their partner. So how could they create the space as a parent to ever date someone or be in a relationship with someone when you are created to be their equal? Does that make sense? So from that comes all these other challenges and issues. Sometimes the male or adult male may say, yeah, I need to find my way or find my place. And if they try to set a boundary, then they're viewed as, you don't love me anymore. You're not loyal to me anymore. It's someone else's fault that you're treating me this way. Instead of understanding that children at different phases, we're to look to that parent for trust and support, but also to try and do things on our own.
And then when that male child is raised in a house and he is like the man of the house, like you said, and then the mother does finally get a boyfriend. I don't know where this came from, but it put me in the mind of Baby Boy. I think because I watched. I think because I saw that interview the other night. But look how that took shape. You know what I'm saying? When the boyfriend came, he was mad about it, and then the mom, and that's another issue I know that comes along with guys is that the mother. He was older. He should have been out the house, but we talking about a young man, a young boy, child, or teenager, where they feel like, if the mom has a new boyfriend and the parents aren't together and, she brings the new boyfriend in, he feels like, he's not significant anymore.
Yeah.
Or he's not, he doesn't matter anymore. And then he acts out. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the child sees himself as expendable or replaceable. And this is where it's important as parents that we help our children to understand that this is your part. My job is to meet your needs, to make sure you're safe, to make sure you're fed, to make sure you're clothed, to make sure that your needs are met, that you're safe, that you're going to your doctor's appointments and you're going to dental appointments. No child should be emotionally responsible for an adult. It should be the other way around. And so if they've created this dynamic, which I referenced emotional incest, and it's when that parent puts all their emotional value and effort into this small person instead of someone that's their equal, there's this imbalance. And so as the kid starts to get older, and again, they've been the center of the world, and then mom ends up taking on a relationship, that kid is now feeling like for all these years, I've been the only one. And now I'm left out here in the cold and I'm isolated from you, or I'm competing for your time and attention. And so what we view as they're acting out or they're misbehaving, it's them actually trying to get your attention. And they just don't know how to do it the right way or the best way or the healthiest way. So now they have disruptive issues at school. Now they're fighting with you or arguing with you over small stuff. They're not fulfilling chores or requirements in the house or whatever the acting out may be. That's the opposite of their character. It's usually because they're trying to get your attention. It's usually they're trying to get their place back because they feel like they've now been replaced. And the reality is that you weren't replaced because you were never their equal partner. You were always that child, but you were made to feel as though you're taking care of your parent.
What do you think about moms who and I guess it doesn't have to just be with moms. It can be dads too. Girl, I want to get all up in this. Okay, so we got so much to talk about. But what do you think about the mom or dad who introduces their child to the latest person in their life? They switch out boyfriend, girlfriend,
the new flavor of the month.
The new flavor of the month. Do you think that affects the kids?
Absolutely. The thought or the notion is that if you're in a relationship, your child should not be exposed to all the people you're dating until you're seriously dating someone. And this is something kind of like they're going to be around. This is a long haul. If you have a repetitive pattern of dating someone for a month or two and then they're gone, and then they're here and then they're gone. The challenge is if that child, girl or boy, or either it's a mom or a dad, and that child is not accustomed to having an adult in their life and then they latch on and then that person's gone. Kids usually internalize that as though it's something I did that they loved, instead of understanding this is a relationship between adults and it ended, so now they're gone. But when you have children, it's a package deal. And I think sometimes the adult forgets that this is a package deal. And so if you feel as though, oh, I want you to meet my kids, do you really want everybody to meet your kids? No, you don't. So if you're going to have a dating relationship with someone and you're just casually dating, they shouldn't be around your kids.
Because you don't know their mental status. You still trying to figure out.
You don't know. And then you're exposing your kids to Sally, Susan, Sarah, and next thing you know, they think, oh, this is how relationships work. You just in and out, in and out, in and out. Or if I see them, it's only in this parameter, which is in our home. They're overnights. So I don't really understand all that goes into a dating relationship because I only see you here at night or I only see you here at select times. And so the challenge becomes if you have a parent who is single and they don't have other persons or the other parent is not active in the child's life for whatever reasons, or they're not allowed to be a part of the child's life, you risk exposing your kids to different people, different personalities, different behaviors. And then because you don't know the person, you put your child at risk safety-wise because who knows what this person is capable of. So the whole intent should be to protect your child, still have a dating relationship, but not expose your child to every relationship until that person is committed and you're serious and you're going to go somewhere where like we're in the long haul. Because they're only going to, again, this is how they get their concept of dating. This is how they get their concept of how to be in a relationship. This is how they interpret what love looks like. And so what am I teaching my kid by having Tom over, then Terrence over, then Terry over? At some point, when the kid is old enough, they're going to look back and they may say, my parent was kind of all over the place with quite a few different people spreading themselves thin. And then when that parent tries to tell you what you can or can't do, they're then going to say, well, you did it. And then you want to get mad. Well, you can't get mad because you demonstrated for them what a dating relationship looks like.
So that would be like a learned behavior.
Oh, absolutely. So the intent is you have to practice what you preach. And I can't tell you can't have 11 boyfriends, but I have them. And then I expect you not to do the same thing because I am the closest relationship as far as example you'll see. And so if it's minimized or made to feel as though it's not that big of a deal and how I date or how you should date, I'm going to carry that with me into my dating relationships, into my friendships where I think people are replaceable or disposable. Like I can change you as quickly as I change my pair of underwear. Like this is it's not
disposable.
It's disposable. It's non-essential. It's just another thing I can get. It's another thing I can purchase. And so
wait a minute. Let's go. Yeah. I'm gonna let you finish your last sentence. But I do. Yeah. I gotta. What you call this? I gotta twist my finger and remind myself of what I want to say because that just made me think of something. But go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I don't want you to think. Go ahead.
It made me think about the whole, boys will be boys type of thing where the dad, slaps the guy like, yeah, man, it's okay to have a revolving door of women, yeah. and I don't know, because I'm not a guy. I don't know if, and I definitely know that's the learned behavior. Papa was a rolling stone, the apple don't fall too far from the tree. A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times. So I'm wondering, I don't know if that's a generational curse or it's just, society okays the boys will be boys and, they have this revolving door of women. And is that a part of acting out too, or a learned behavior that was ingrained in them as they grew up?
It can be a combination of factors. It's not one thing. That's just it. So, like I said before in the last episode, that I like to look at things from a systems perspective. And so, if you look at things from a systems perspective, what you have is yourself in the center, and then imagine all these lines coming off of you. And each line represents a new thing. So you could have school, work, parents, friendships, love relationships, all these different things that are a part of your system. And all of these factors impact you. They either influence you in a positive way or a negative way. And the same happens for you because the decisions that you make impact your system. So if you think about, say I'm in this relationship and you have cultural standards, then you have societal standards, and then the message you've heard over and over again is it's okay for him to have. Perfect example. Think about how if you have a female teacher who is interested in one of her students in the high school level, the kids, the boys will probably think, oh my gosh, that's awesome. You got a lady that's so did it. The boys, these are the boys going on about how, yeah, you got that teacher in you and da da da. Now let the roles reverse and it's a male teacher interested in a female student. He's a perv. I can't believe you would look at one of your students that way. So you have all these messages that people believe or don't believe. If a guy sleeps with a girl or multiple girls, it's, oh man, you the dog, you this, you that, yeah, get that, get that. But let it be a girl and her reputation is now tarnished.
But
She's a
they
slut.
learn that from childhood.
You can learn that at any number of things. It's not just, that's just it. It's not one thing. The challenge becomes is that sometimes the system you're a part of, that family system, the messages that you learn, the examples that you see, it can be a learned behavior. It can also be something where this is how I cope. Sex is viewed as love, and it's not. It's equated as such. So if I give you something that belongs to me, you'll love me. If I give you something that you hopefully will value, then I'll be pleasing to you. And so, depending on what experience you have growing up, you grow up thinking that sex equals love. So, if you have sex with people, they love me. Same message can be believed for boys or girls. It doesn't have to be one or the other. The
Yeah.
challenge is that you compound that by the messages that stereotypically you hear from boys and what you hear from girls. Then you look at the cultural norms of our society of how a woman is viewed versus how a man is viewed. And then you layer that with what ethnic group are you a part of? Because now your cultural group may say this is unacceptable, this is displeasing, this is what we don't do. It's all bad, it's all wrong. And so you can become an outcast in your family if you have sex before a certain age and they're trying to, arrange a marriage for you. So your virginity is precious. Whereas over here, as long as you love the person and they make you feel good, it's okay. So it's multiple factors. It isn't just one thing. But when you think about the family dynamics of what you grow up in and the messages that you hear or see, you start to learn certain behaviors. And if someone never sits down to talk to you about why you feel compelled to behave this way, why you think that you should be having sex with all these people, who's going to challenge you on it if everybody is celebrating you when you do it? How can they view it as wrong? And if you're made to feel like I shouldn't be doing this, now I'm viewing sex as a dirty or nasty thing. So it's all about what you're taught as you grow up and what are the messages that are most significant that you begin to believe and buy into that infiltrate your system and help you to make those decisions that you make as you become an adult and in those relationships with other people.
So, what does it look like to a guy who grew up and felt like the mother rejected him or she neglected him in some way? how does his adult life, what does it look like? What does it shape and become?
That's the thing. The interesting part is that for each of us, we can kind of turn out differently. And the way I like to explain this is that it's you and four siblings or five siblings. You all grew up in the exact same household, but each of you have a different perception or perspective of that family.
That's true.
So the same concept can happen for the particular individual you're trying to identify and say, is this what they learned, or is this what they believe, or is this what they grew up with, or this is what they expected? We can have two come out of the same family and each of them experience it differently. So that's why I'm saying there's no one shoe fits all. There are just factors that play out differently for one over the other. And say, for instance, you have this kid who was rejected and made to feel like they were not important to their parent. Well, what do? I seek approval from other people in other ways. So I may join a gang, or I may become a person who's a people pleaser. So everything I do is to make other people happy. Maybe I become so good at certain things like academics or sports because these people are showering me with approval. They're telling me I'm worthy and I'm accepted. And so to back off from what I felt here, these people love me. These people appreciate me. And so it can play out a number of different ways. That's at the crux of it. It can be different for each person.
Now, if the mom talks about the boy's dad, you know, he bliggity bliggity blank, and she's very upset with him, and unfortunately talks about him on the regular, about how he's no good, and not all dads, but for the sake of this conversation, we're talking about mommy and daddy issues. So if she's talking a bad mouthing his dad, or God forbid he looks like him, or shares the same name, what happens to that boy?
More times than not, they try to overcome or overcompensate for what they've heard. Some kids take on the same messages as the parent because here we are in this equal relationship, which really isn't. And now I take on a perspective of you as a parent and I treat you accordingly. I'm disrespectful. I disregard you because I'm believing this parent over here. And so I start to grow up with this image of I don't ever want to be like them. I don't ever want to be associated in that manner. So they can go from one extreme to the other, to be the complete opposite of that person, and to not be that person when they're given all these negative messages about who they are as a person, and made to believe if you grow up to be like them, then you're no good too. You're just as bad as they are. Even though I've done nothing wrong, I'm guilty by association. So now I'm having to prove myself, or I'm going to fulfill that prophecy of what you did, be just like them. So this is where the challenge becomes, where when we become of a certain age, we know the difference, hopefully, between right and wrong. We know the difference between what's helpful and what isn't helpful. Sometimes it's so blurred that we don't even know. So we try, the hope is that at some point, if you figure, I keep hearing the same thing in my relationships, that I'm this way, I'm that way. To some degree, it has to be true because you're the only common denominator in all these relationships where someone is saying, this is what you do, this is how you act, this is it. At some point you have to say, gosh, maybe I am a poor communicator. Maybe I am selfish. Maybe I do have anger issues. Right. Maybe I do have unresolved stuff from family that I need to deal with. And so the reality becomes, how do I reconcile those two things of what I grew up believing and now have kind of latched on to, and then saying, how do I contrast it with, I can be different, I can be better, I could be healthier with regards to how I am in relationships and how I believe and what I do and what I don't do. The challenge is that every adult child who comes out of dysfunctional relationships, they end up experiencing some form of mental health or lack of wellness, because you have depression, you have anxiety, because we sometimes just stuff it so low that it's like, if I never deal with it, I'm fine. That's how I cope. I don't deal with it. Or I become an emotional eater. So now I have weight issues. Maybe I'm obsessive compulsive. So now I'm at this place where if I do certain things so rigidly and so succinctly, I will be okay. And in essence, it causes you more harm. If my only way of coping is to escape from it because I'm using chemicals, whether it's drugs or alcohol, that's how I function. If it's, I disassociate, so I don't even acknowledge, I kind of break off from it like, oh, that has nothing to do with me and I'm beneath that, or I become extremely dependent or codependent or enabling. The challenge is understanding that we have these behaviors that play out, and we have to be mindful to say, I need to change this. I need to do something differently. And for those of us who are believers and Christians, we say there's some element of generational. What's happening here? What is this thing that we all have been doing? How much of that is learned and passed on? And how much of that is nature versus nurture? Think about when, for example, I remember we went on a family vacation one year, and my baby sister was doing something, and my mom forever and a day would say, I don't know where she got that from. And so on this family vacation, we met an aunt that was the sister of my grandfather, who we had never had the chance to meet because he died. And my sister was just like this aunt, personality, the whole thing. So then it becomes a question as to nature versus nurture, because we had never been around them, never experienced them. But here's my youngest sister whose personality, her interactions, her quick wit, everything was just like this aunt. And we were like, that is crazy.
So is it genetic? I mean, what is that?
Just, and that's the thing. It's for some of us, it's kind of like, it's just there. Some stuff is just there. They have all these demeanors and characteristics and traits because they're just similar to a person, and we don't know why. Or sometimes they're just like a person because they grew up in that environment. It just depends on the circumstances, which is why it's so interesting when you hear people say nature versus nurture. How much of who we become is based upon our environment compared to genetics and DNA and all these things. But you can't cancel either one of them out because they both play a part.
So let me look. That just made me think. I love these talks. Okay, they make me so excited. So let me ask you this. So for the guys who become abusive, like physically abusive or even emotionally abusive, and that's how their dad was to their mom, but it was before they got here though. They didn't grow up in that house. They never saw that. But they still was abusive, or they still treated their girlfriend or their wife like the dad treated the mom, but they weren't in the household when it happened. Is that something similar to what you're talking about?
Somewhat. Like, for example, like the example you just gave, where you have a child who did not grow up seeing it or experiencing it, but deep down they have unresolved anger. They've never talked about it. They've never dealt with it. They've coped by avoiding it. And then as an adult, something happens that snaps and sets an emotion where you have all this stuff you've been pushing down, and then this person becomes now the punching bag of where you release all that pressure. Because if you think about it, when I have no self-control, when I am unable to manage or self-regulate, this is when I unleash upon other people. And I don't care who's in my way. It can come towards a child. It can come from a stranger. It can come from anywhere. And usually it's because we don't have healthy coping skills. We don't have healthy self-regulation. We think we do because we've never done this before, or we just kind of, oh, I'm fine, and I push it way, way down and I push it away. But you let something like that build up over time, at some point it's going to overtake you. At some point it's going to become bigger. It's kind of like when someone says, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he's that destructive and aggressive and violent. We didn't grow up like that." Now it's about that person and what have they not been doing? Because at some point you can't always blame the family you grew up in. You can't always blame the parent and what they did or didn't do. At some point there's a level of accountability
Responsibility.
and responsibility that comes with the choices that we make. So if I'm in a love relationship and I know that what I'm doing is hurting that person, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, I now am responsible for that. I can't say at 50 some odd years old, I blame my mother and father. You have to take some ownership after a certain point. Can we acknowledge that somehow it kind of started there? Absolutely. Do you have to be angry at your parent? No, because they did the best that they could, because they probably didn't know. They didn't, have a level of healthy understanding regarding certain things. So you have to take that ownership and responsibility for saying, either I'm going to do better for myself and be healthy for those that I love, or I'm going to use the excuse that no one ever loved me, so I get to act out in every kind of way. Well, that's just an adult throwing a temper tantrum. What's the difference between you and a child having
And
this moment?
I want to talk about, and we're gonna get into the girls because I
Yeah.
know we could go and go and go. Because y'all know how horrible I am with time and when it comes to talking about this stuff. But with guys, I was looking at this article in Psychology Today, and it was talking about how guys demonstrate their mommy issues in a variety of ways. They have issues trusting women. They can be disrespectful to women. They can be possessive, suspicious, of her in the relationship for whatever reason, or they can worship or ignore the mother. And then, I'm sorry, that's another form of a trait of having mommy issues. But the first ones that I mentioned of trusting women, being possessive, disrespectful, being suspicious, those are direct reflections of having mother issues and taking it out in some way in their adult relationships. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, and this is the thing. Of all the relationships that we'll ever, excuse me, ever be in, it'll be the dating relationship, the one that we see the most of where our issues lie. It won't be in our friendships of the same sex. It won't be with our girlfriends or our fellas. It'll be in that love relationship where we will play out over and over and over again how healthy we are or how unhealthy we are. And that's why when I've had couples to come into counseling and they've been dealing with relationship issues and maybe one person was unfaithful, then you have to ask yourself, was it really about the other person or was something going on for you? What were you looking for that you felt as though it wasn't in the relationship? Had nothing to do with the relationship. It had everything to do
Saying that
with
they don't blame the spouse. They need to look within themselves to see what their issue was.
It's not all that one person's fault. When someone says, well, you don't love me or you don't touch me or you don't hug me. Okay, to some degree, there is a level of responsibility and accountability from your partner, but you also were looking for something. And sometimes instead of looking inside ourselves to understand what's missing, we look outside ourselves to plug it, to put it in there to fill us up.
That's so right. That's so girl. Y'all was the nugget, y'all. That's so real right there. That is the truth. I had to even learn that, growing up that, you because not man, but man as in one man and man in general in life, it will disappoint you. We cannot put all our put all our eggs in a basket waiting for somebody else to make us happy.
Mhm.
because they're going to disappoint, every time.
Mhm.
We're responsible for our own happiness, is what I
Mhm.
had to learn.
Mhm.
Is that true?
Absolutely. Whether it's you having sex to feel better, whether it's you using drugs to feel better, whether it's you having children to feel like you're a good parent or a good person, we all find something. We all look for something. The issue is are you looking in the right places?
Oh, girl, you better preach.
So that's why it's so important to understand if you're in a love relationship and you've not had the most successful love relationships, you at some point have to say, it can't always be about the other person doing something wrong. At some point, I have to look at myself and say, what is in me that I'm drawing this kind of person to me? What am I looking for that this person stands out? Do they remind me of a parent? Do they remind me of this individual that stood out to me in life and I thought they were the best thing ever? So now I'm searching for that. And so again, if we were created to be in relationship, that's evident because God said it wasn't good for man to be alone. So here he made a woman. So we were created to be
And
in
Adam
relationship.
said, whoa, man.
Right. So
That's
we
her name, woman.
woman. So we were created to be in relationship with others. We were created to be connected to others. But when you put so much stock into others and not yourself, then you have to imagine, am I drawn to people who have so much more than me? And then at some level, I then become resentful to them that they have those things and I don't. Because I was drawn. I was drawn to that. So
Yes.
you're here and I'm here. You're like, oh, I want to help you, and you're like, oh, I want, and then we never come together. So the thing that I loved about you being so great at, I now resent you for because you're so great at it, and then you remind me how bad I am at it. Well, no one made you be with them.
Wow, that's so good, Charlie. I hope y'all writing this down. That's
So,
good.
so
That's
the key is if you're going to be in relationship with other people, is that you fill your cup up and they can fill yours up. But they shouldn't be the only ones filling up your cup, which is why when you have mommy issues, daddy issues, you're searching for something. You're genuinely
didn't get.
you're looking for something. So you have to ask yourself, what am I looking for and what is it based upon? What is that prototype that I am basing what I'm looking for on? And it could be an absent parent. It could be a parent who was overly involved. It could be any of those things, but you have to acknowledge that and be responsible for that, and then say, okay, what do I need to do to be healthy, to be better, to be a good partner if I'm going to be in a relationship with someone.
And you know what? That made me think that, about us all trying to fill some kind of void, whatever it is that we didn't get,
Mhm.
growing up from whatever parent that we look for, kind of like looking for love in all around places. And we're going to
Mhm.
segue into the girls, but a lot of girls, and I know some guys do it too, but I know definitely with girls that, we looking for a daddy figure. And I would say guys too, looking for a mommy figure, you
Mhm.
know, like, my ex, cook, clean, hush your mouth type of thing, and so on and so forth. And it's like, dude, I am not your mama, you know.
Right.
I'm your mate, and I
Mhm.
don't mind, doing for you, but I think you get me mixed up with, what your mother didn't do for you. And I
Mhm.
had to figure it out,
That
and
what
it's,
they didn't do and what they did do for you, because you do get
yes,
those. You do get those too. Like I
that's
want to,
true.
just like my mama. She cooks, she cleans. Well, that sounds like you want a maid. That's what it sounds like you want. You want someone that's gonna do these parts. And so I think what you're saying is absolutely true. That we just have to look at again. What am I trying to create? What am I trying to get you to become or not be like? That I'm going to the extreme of it, or I'm just searching for it. I'm going to find it somewhere and I don't know where to find it at. And
You get those moms who, the son either ignores the mother or he worships her, depending on, whether
mhm,
where how she was as a parent to him,
yeah.
And then I had to learn also how he treats his mom
Mhm.
is half the time how you're gonna be treated,
It's
you
usually a
know.
pretty good indicator as to how you will be treated. It really, in essence, is when you look at how well they do or don't do for people that they consider to be important to them. People who, again, took care of you until you were of age, then how are you treating them now? And there are those moments where we do have relationships where they are strained because of whatever happened growing up or the level of abuse or mistreatment. No one's expecting you to kind of say, I got to stay connected to you. But for those of us who have, for the most part, a level of healthy relationship with people, it usually is a good indicator or reflection of how good you will be in a relationship with me based upon how you treat other people. And primarily, it is the parents that you kind of look at and say, okay, I see what I'm getting. I see what I'm working with. Remember if you ever saw the movie Players Club, and remember when Jamie Foxx came to take, what was her name, Diamond, out, and the dad was in the backyard shooting the gun and scaring the crap out of Jamie Foxx, and he was like, "We got to get out of here." But to some degree, to that dad, that's his little girl.
Right,
That's my baby,
right.
and you're not gonna hurt her if I didn't hurt her.
That's right. That's right. So let's get
Yeah,
into that. Let's
yeah.
get into that. So would you say it's true that our parents are our first teachers on how our relationship should go, what they should look like?
Hmm.
So not necessarily what they're telling us is how we learn from them. We learn from them by their actions with one
Absolutely,
another. And
absolutely.
so we watch how the dad treats the mom,
Hmm.
and we watch how the mom treats the dad,
Hmm.
as our first tools on how we should be when we become adults and get into those relationships.
Hmm.
How we discipline our kids, we're watching them, how often we cook, how we clean,
Hmm.
how we run the household, all of
Hmm.
those. I'm thinking, and you confirm or deny, that those things are what we learn. And then when we get into our adult relationships, it's kind of like we mimic, what we saw. Is
We,
that a
yeah,
true statement?
we can mimic it or we can be the opposite of it. Like I'll never be. When I say the opposite, say you have a woman who was in a relationship with a man who just got ran all over, didn't know what was going on in the household, trusted everything to him. And then the daughter says, I'll never let a man do that to me.
That's true.
And then she gets in a relationship and she's so vocal about what you're not going to do and what you can do that she beats that man into the ground verbally because she's so adamant about not being like this parent that she viewed as weak. The same can happen for the girl who says, I'm looking for somebody who like my daddy. Well, that man is not going to treat you like your daddy. Why? Because your father is the protector. He's the person who brought life to you. This man you dating did not do that. He's not going to have the same level of stake or ownership in who you are or investment as a person because he didn't have a hand in who you became. And so if you say, I want to marry somebody just like, maybe it's more about, I want to marry someone who had these qualities that made me to feel safe, that made me to feel loved, without saying they got to be like my parent. Because they don't have to be like your parent. Each of us are different. But you could say, I love the fact that my father was a provider and went to work and believed in providing for the family. Or you could say, I love the fact that there were times that I saw my parents actually have fun together and they were laughing and joking and went on dates. And, you know, That's a quality that you admired in their relationship that you say, I would love to be able to have that in mine. And so if you mimic the things that you admire, that's great. But there are also some things that you're like, ooh, but if you made them mad, ooh wee. So you may also say, I never want to date someone whose anger can go from 0 to 10. Watch out. So you have to be mindful of what you're looking for. And the challenge becomes, and this is where I'm not a fan of parents keeping their children away from another parent. You know, if we're having problems, that's between us. That has nothing to do with this kid. Now, if that parent decides I don't want to have nothing to do with this child, that's something different. But for me to weaponize my child against you,
Totally agree.
then there's a problem. Because now here's this girl who needs to have a father in her life to teach her about certain aspects to look out for. I'm a mother of 2 sons. At a certain age, I said, your daddy needs to talk to you about this because I don't have these parts. I can't explain to you how this works on your body.
Right.
I can tell you the science of how it works and why it does what it does, but I can't tell you the experience as a man
Right.
to be you and what you're going to grow up with. Just like a man at a certain point, if he's a single father, you need a village of women to help you with that girl.
That's right.
And so if you're not going to be in partnership with the other parent for whatever reasons, then at least surround your child with people who are positive images or reflections that they can glean from. You know, again, if you're weaponizing your child to keep them away from a parent that wants to be a parent, then there's a problem. That's a huge problem. But at the same time, if part of the reason they're keeping that child away is because you're destructive or you're abusing substances or you are attacking or violent, that's something different. Because then you have to say, I'm trying to protect my child because I don't know what you're going to do to them because I've seen what you can do to me.
Right.
That's something different than.
But you're right, because moms, there are some moms who are upset that the relationship didn't work out with the dad, and they'll use that kid as punishment or some kind of to try to hurt him in some way because she's hurting.
Right.
And we know that they hurt people.
Hurt people. But think about it. How many girls, when you hear they need their fathers, it's because it's true.
Right.
You need a man to reflect for you what protection looks like, what someone respecting you looks like. That has nothing to do with what's between your legs.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
so
that was the nugget, y'all.
And who better else to do that than a father figure to teach you how important you are and a value you are without having to give yourself away to someone.
Yes.
Without having, because your mom can tell you all day long. But at what point do you sometimes hear a little bit better from someone of the opposite sex when they tell you the real deal?
That's right.
Like, let me lay this down for you. I want you to pick up what I'm about to put down. And that's when sometimes you understand the magnitude of why it's important to have that parent figure in your life. It's not enough to be, again, raised by a whole bunch of women, because all you have is the perspective of women. And usually it's women who are angry. I'm not going to say usually. At times it can be women that are angry, who are bitter, women who have dealt with things, and now they're passing those messages on to you and teaching you. Again, if the dad is genuinely one who is not involved, who doesn't want to be around, that's on the father.
Who is neglecting and kind of rejecting.
He is. That, and sometimes that person is rejecting you because of the parent, not because of you as a person. Or if they said, I'm not ready to be a parent, or I don't want to have a baby, it will be evident based upon how they treat you or don't treat you. And this is where you as an adult have to reconcile, again, feeling like I have to overcompensate in certain ways to get love because I didn't think I was lovable because this person who's supposed to love me didn't. Which is why we end up in relationships where we're looking for stuff for someone to give me that it's not their responsibility to give that to you because you're now making that person into a parent to love you instead of a partner. Wrong P. It's the wrong P. This is a partner, not a parent. And so this is where it's important to understand the stuff I bring with me into a relationship is just that. All this stuff, all the stuff you
All
don't
that
see,
baggage.
all the stuff, the song Bag Lady, it's real because we
Bag
are walking,
lady.
you carrying, you gonna hurt your back.
Yeah,
Dragging all them bags
like
like
that. That's right. That's right.
because you don't know it's there until you have to start unpacking. And next thing you know, you unpack all this stuff and there's no room for someone else to be there because you haven't dealt with it.
Oh, that's good. That is so real, Dr. Copeland. That is good.
That's for men and women. We
Right.
reference women more with the bag lady reference, but how much stuff are we carrying around that when we finally put it down, we pick it back up because we can't trust someone else to carry it or to hold it.
One of the viewers just said a trunk.
Right. You got a caravan full of stuff that people say, come on, let's be together.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, but by the way, and then you point to all this stuff. They may rethink and say, yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Right.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
And what trips me out is that a guy, he would think he is Rico Suave and have it going on. And you turn around and you're like, dude, listen, you're more of a liability than an asset. You got a big truck behind you.
You lugging just as much as me. Like, how we gonna make this work? And this is where it's important that you have self-help, where you have reading materials while you try to get better, while you have journaling, while you have books or apps that are out there on our phones now that we can use for just self-improvement. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, especially when what you're trying to improve will change your system. It will change your relationships with other people. It will actually be better. It will, it's kind of like when you have a person who grows up without nothing. And then my grandmother, she grew up during the Depression. So as a woman that was older, we would always be like, why is she keeping stuff? Throw that away. That's garbage. Or she do know that's no good. Like, you wonder how people become hoarders or why they hold on to stuff. Like, why would they keep that? Because of what they experienced. So with her growing up in the Great Depression, she had to learn how to hold on to the stuff that was, you would think, unusable. She learned how to use it. They taught them that it wasn't completely bad. You cut off this part and it's still good. Versus now where you have wealth or you have more, you have abundance, and you're still living that mindset of poverty. You're living that mindset of lack. Same happens in our relationships. We may experience things where there was lack or a lack of value, or I have low self-esteem. And so now I'm in this relationship and I cower. I shrink. I may stand tall in front of others, but emotionally inside, I cower and I shrink. And when he speaks or has a loud voice, I'm afraid. I'm thinking something's about to happen, or I jump because this is what I grew up seeing or hearing or knowing. And so this is why it's so important that as we become adults, we work through whatever stuff we encountered. So we bring our best self to the table, because I shouldn't have to fix me and fix you. That's not my job.
Right. I had to go there. I had to figure that out too. I'm like, wait a minute. Why am I more stressed out about your problems than I am mine?
Mm-hmm.
That you can't, y'all listen. Y'all, we got to clean out this trunk before we get into another relationship.
Yes.
And I think Dr. Copeland agree or disagree if I'm right or wrong, but we want to blame. We all, a lot of time, I won't say all the time, but a lot of times, like you hit it on the nail a minute ago, is we want to blame the other person when we got to look in that mirror while we pointing those, what is it, two fingers at somebody, that one finger somebody else. What you got?
Yeah, three pointing back at you.
Pointing back at you. We got to take a look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, especially if you the common denominator.
The common denominator. you the only somebody in every single scenario, right, in every single relationship, but they all saying the same thing about you.
Right.
You have to say, maybe I should
take a minute. Take a minute.
I tell couples when they are especially if they're divorcing. Usually the person, the terms are dumper and dumpy. The dumper is usually like, I'm good. They've cut off, they're done. The dumpy is usually like, where did this come from? And how could you feel this way? And we can't break up. Because one of us has already decided, I'm done. They checked out a long time ago. What I always tell couples, whether you're married, separated, dating, don't jump into a new relationship. Don't get over one old thing because you got a new thing.
I've been there. Don't do it.
You're only bringing with you all the stuff. How many times you heard someone say, he used to, and I'm never gonna, and you doing the same thing they did. Hold on. You punishing me for what someone else did to you. Is that fair to me? No. You're punishing me. You're preparing yourself for me to do something someone else did. So you're not even giving me the chance to make my own mistakes. You're putting upon me the burdens of someone else.
Because do you think, Dr. Copeland, that they're doing that because of their experience in a past relationship? They think they're going, if they see that same pattern, they think that the outcome is going to be the exact same.
Absolutely.
Like it was in the former.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, so I like to use the term in couples situations, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. When we are looking for all the bad stuff, we're not looking for any of the good. We're looking for all the red flags. Even though they may not be red flags, we're looking so we can say, yep, they did it. Yep, they did it. Yep, they did it. And now I'm justified in my choice of leaving because I just fulfilled my self-fulfilling prophecy of what I thought was true. I looked for it. I went hunting for it. And when I found it, it justified it. And so this is why it's so important that if you're going to leave a relationship, especially one that was significant, where you've been together for years and you've done a whole lot of stuff together, you need to make time and space to be alone so that you can recalibrate, so to speak, and be on your own without being in a couple. Because you've been so used to it's two of you instead of just one of you. It's always been the two of us and me considering you and you considering me. That when it's time to be alone, we don't like that feeling. So we're ready to race on to the next one. And this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. I don't want to be in this space. But the reality is until you've addressed and resolved the stuff from over there, you don't need to rush to a new one. You don't need to be in another one because you're carrying all this other baggage in addition to the unresolved stuff that's been there.
And it could be, the mommy and daddy issues on top of the relationship after your own experiences or negative experiences in those relationships. And bring in, like you said, the trunk, all of that stuff. And that's what I had to learn. I made the mistake of, getting divorced and going, right back into the dating field. And that was mistake 1, 2, 3 through 10. Okay.
But that's the thing. We forget that sometimes we have to grieve the loss of something And
Yes.
a relationship is just that too. You have to grieve and say it's okay to let that thing go. I'm not saying you got to be a nun and lock yourself up the rest of your life and never be. I'm saying give yourself an appropriate amount of time to process and to release and be okay. I mean, genuinely be okay with being alone before you say, sure, I'm ready to start dating. Like you said, 1, 2, 3, and all of them, they are there. And so,
I was the poster child in my group therapy. Out for real. They would have me talking to other groups. And I'm like, listen, do not jump into another, because we need to work on ourselves. We
mm-hmm,
need time to heal.
mm-hmm,
Heal our childhood traumas or issues, and then heal whatever we experience personally with our own relationships,
yes,
because it never works out. it
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 never
just it
does.
doesn't it
It's
doesn't
just something, it's like a full bleed that's happening. You just put a band-aid on it. It's not
Yes.
enough. It's
No.
too deep, it's too big of a cut. There has to be more done. And so the same goes with your relationships. When you come out of a family dynamic that has a high level of dysfunction and unhealthy behaviors, you need to be able to process and work through and look at what does healthy relationships look like.
Right.
Because if you don't have an idea as to what that looks like, you're just running off of memory, that your body memory, your cell memory of what you consider to be the norm. And so you have to understand, what does healthy relationships look like? What are successful? They're built upon communication. They're built upon give or take. As much as people love 50-50 love by Teddy Pendergrass. The reality is there are times in my marriage with my husband where he's at 80 and I'm at 20.
Yes.
Or it's flip flop.
Right.
I'm at 80 and he's at 20. There's never a 50-50 completely all the time. We're always going to have those moments where we're kind of at different numbers. But the question is do you help out so that you can get that person where they need to be? Should you be always running at 80 and they're at 20? No, because at some point you're going to become resentful
That's
of them not
right.
pulling their weight, or you're going to become resentful to the person who's telling you you're not pulling your weight. So you have to be able to balance each other out and navigate that, so that if we're both at 50-50, or if we're both given 100, we never have to worry about the other person falling short. But if I'm having a hard time, I have to be able to convey that to you. The only way to do that is to communicate that and say, I really need some extra help right now. I really could use your support right now. If you could do this for me, that would be great. But do we do that? No. We overcompensate, or we get angry, or we say, you should have, and why didn't you know? Well, they're not mind readers. How are they supposed? Well, you should know me enough to know. To some degree, they do know you when they've been with you long enough. But at the same time, you still have to use your words, as I like to tell my kids. Use your words to tell me what it is that you need or you want, because I won't always know what it is that you need or you want.
So
Same
let
happens
me
in relationships.
let me ask you this. We got 5 minutes. I'm putting us on
Okay.
the clock.
Okay. All right. We on the clock.
So let me ask you this, because I could be at 5 more hours, but for the girls who go from one relationship to the next and have one child after the other, by 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, of her former boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on with her? And I know that's a loaded question.
It's back to the original thought of, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Because you're looking for it in other people. And then the question becomes also, what weren't you taught? That you have multiple children by multiple people. That's a lot of juggling to do. It's hard when you have multiple kids with one person.
Right.
Imagine 3, 4, 5 different men, and then having kids of each of them. And then each kid having their own parent, and that own parent is or isn't in their life. it's so complicated. So at the base of it, it becomes, what are you looking for? What's missing that you're looking for all of it externally? And then you have a child that you think will make you feel whatever that void is when that person's no longer in the picture. But now I'm putting a burden upon a baby. Is that fair? So it really boils down to what's missing. What are you looking for when you are searching blindly to some degree? You're walking through life eyes wide open, but you really can't see because you're just looking, you're searching, you're trying to figure out where it's at. And then when you think you got it, great. But the lesson still goes back to, but did anyone teach you about it's not for everybody? You shouldn't share yourself with everyone. Everyone's not worthy of what you have to give them. And so if they don't believe that, or if they don't know that, I'm looking for something to make me feel of value, of worth, to feel important, to feel loved, to feel appreciated, to feel whatever you need to put behind that to give you what you need. Unfortunately, you're not going to find it in all these other people and things. That is an internal thing, which is why it's important to have the male parent in your child's life to let them mirror certain things, or at least a good representation of males, to say these
And
are
that can
positive role models and
and
figures.
that can be a role model if you don't have your biological father. You know,
Mhm.
it could be a stepfather, it could
It,
be an uncle, a grandfather.
it can be
You
any of
know,
those things that are positive. My husband can tell me very distinctly key men in his life when he was growing up that he really respected, in addition to how he did or didn't feel about his dad, or even with other men that I've talked to and heard as adults, they usually have that one particular man or two particular men that stand out to them. And it's because they were active in their life, where the parent, the mom, said, I need to have some male figures around you, positive representation. The same goes for fathers who end up as single dads. I need to surround you with positive representation, whether it's a grandmother, it's an aunt, if it's a friend from church, or whatever that looks like. It's about having relationships where you're in mentor groups, whether you're connected to the people who are like, no, let them mentor them, let them help them develop. Because again, there are certain things I can't teach my son. Just like there are certain things, if I
you
had a
can't teach him how to be a man. You just can't.
I can give you all the tools and point you in all the directions, but can I truly walk in your shoes of what that pressure is like? No, I can't. And the same goes for a father who's raising the daughter. And so and that's why the beauty of when you have partnership, even if we're not together, you have co-parenting, so that even if we don't stay together, we didn't work well as a unit, you can still be an effective parent. And those children can still learn, even if it didn't work, this is how you do a good job of communicating. Or even though it didn't work, my dad is still here, and this is the way he interacted with us and discussed things with us. So the key is understanding for yourself as an adult, looking back at your life and saying, if there are certain decisions that I'm making, certain things that are happening that aren't useful, they're not healthy, they're not beneficial to me, and I keep hearing the same message from people who break up with me or I break up with them, I have to step back and ask myself, what am I missing? What am I looking for? And then get the tools to do the work. Because that's what it boils down to. It's up to you to do that work, whether it's through self help readings, whether it's you participating in a group, whether it's you going to therapy one on one, whether it's you reading everything you can imagine and doing inventories and whatever that looks like. It's about you doing the work so that you become the best version of yourself, the healthiest version of yourself, the more successful version of yourself, not just for you, but also for the relationships you're connected to. Because the better I am, I have something good to give you. I can't give you nothing if I don't have anything.
Girl, we can stop right there. That was good. 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 I couldn't have ended it better myself. That was good. And that's the whole point of the show, y'all. As you already know, is becoming the best version of you with me. I'm not here sitting here as the expert. I'm bringing experts so we can learn and process together. Because I got my own issues, okay? So I'm not the expert. But I want to invite you and have extended invitation to you so you can take this journey with me so we both can work on becoming the best versions of us. It is work. My family would make fun of me because I would join a group in a nanoseconds and not ashamed of it. Because I truly do want to be the best version of myself. That's one of my life goals. Because I know when I'm at my heights and when I'm at my best, I can be a blessing to other people. I'll be able to give more and be able to give back. But I have to be whole first. My cup has to be full first so I have something to pour out. Or at least offer my overflow that's in the cup, you know? And so, Dr. Copeland, I have truly, as you already know, enjoyed our talks. I hate that they ended, but she does have her own practice, and we won't be selfish because she got to help all those many patients and clients that she has to help them become their best selves as well. So I told her already she is welcome to come back. She promised me 3 shows for our 3 series. I kind of adjusted this last one because I'm like, okay, I got to think of something good because we only got one more day with Dr. Copeland. I got to make it good. So I believe I made the right decision to talk about mommy and daddy issues. So I truly appreciate you. You are a true woman of God. You are a girl. You were heaven sent to me and a gift to us. And we truly, truly have enjoyed you. This will not be the last time y'all see her, y'all. Okay, you know, Miss Mary always thinking and working on something. So we will be back. We will be back. And I have one question I want to leave off with. One of the girls asked, "Was it okay after a relationship or a separation? Is it healthy to I don't know if the word is replace, but if it's healthy to get a pet within, the time frame of the breakup to help kind of, maybe, I don't know if that's a
it sounds like in layman's term, emotional support. So that I see not. We were again created to give and to be connected. So if a level of comfort comes with having a pet that someone you can kind of process, even if you're talking to your pet, like you won't believe what happened today. I see nothing wrong with that because in our day and age, we have emotional support animals for people who need support coping with stress and anxiety and depression and all these other things. And so the reality is it's okay to seek comfort in something that will give you peace of mind, or at least, snuggle with you if you feel like I'm having a bad day, or you can go say, let me go for a walk and get my mind right. Come on, Johnny, let's go for a walk. And you and Johnny just walk it out. You feel better. And so I don't see anything wrong with people having emotional support animals. There are some groupings, even if you don't want a pet of your own, you can volunteer your time and go to a shelter or something and take care of animals, or sign up to do some kind of volunteer active work so that you can kind of work through and process whatever is happening for you. So there is no wrong answer, but I would strongly encourage you not to get up under another person right away, because
y'all don't do
you have to disentangle from, which is, even though everybody made jokes about Jada and her entanglement, that's a real term that we use in counseling, entanglement. And so you have to find time to disentangle from that emotional stuff, to release it and to kind of unravel because you've been wrapped up so long in it. So yes, short
Time to
answer is
heal. Time to
yeah, absolutely. So short answer is if you feel like a pet will give you some level of comfort and support as you process whatever is happening, guess what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
There it is. There's your answer, y'all. There's your answer.
Well, that concludes the Becoming the Best Version of You with Gigi show. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us, y'all. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and check out our other inspiring videos. Until next time, toodles.